everyone, welcome to Backstory Sessions. I'm your host Matt. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Hey everybody, it's Kat, and I want to welcome you to this episode of Backstory Sessions. I'm joined today by my co-host, Matt. Hey Matt.
Hey Kat, hey everyone, how are you?
Well, it's Memorial Day weekend.
That it is, yes. Happy Memorial Day weekend.
Yes, I feel like people struggle with what to say, um, because, it's like a very solemn holiday, but yet, the weekend is typically like activities like barbecues and, more upbeat things. So,
Mm-hmm.
so I think the happy, Memorial Day weekend is like appropriate.
It's like the
Uh,
unofficial beginning of summer.
yeah, it's raining here, so not really off to a good start on that.
Huh. It's really nice
Uh,
here. It's like 75 and sunny. Or sunny and
yeah,
75 as the song goes.
well, it's because you're there, I always say.
Mm,
But I don't. That's not scientific, of course.
right.
Don't want to
Yeah,
pretend we're giving out science advice.
right.
Meteorology as it may be. But with Memorial Day, I think this episode we have is um, it ties in very well. I think because when you think about Memorial Day and all the people that fought and you know ended up dying for the country,
Mm-hmm.
that's a huge sacrifice, ultimate sacrifice. And this it's that impact. Like I know in Barberville, Kentucky, um driving by there yesterday, like they have all these American flags hung on the street lamps.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have like photo flags of different soldiers who were in wars and died
Mm-hmm.
in combat. But just seeing like their names and faces, even though they're no one I knew, or they're not my relatives, but it just like makes a connection in some way. Just I don't know. It's kind of weird, but um, it just it just touches me to see that. And this movie that we're gonna talk to the writer and director of, it's kind of a similar experience in that. Uh, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, like a grandparent. Um, you know, a lot of them, a lot like I don't have any grandparents left.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I only had, um, I had a very short time with only one grandfather. What about you? Like, did you grow up with all your grandparents, or?
No, my grandmother, she was around for a little while and then she moved to Florida and didn't see her for many years. And then when my mom passed, I actually did get to spend a couple days with her, but that was really the only time. Um, yeah, I believe she's passed away now as well.
Yeah, so um, I remember when I was teaching, like I would always have this assignment about the sad. They would write an essay about the saddest day of their life,
Mm-hmm.
and um, I was really surprised when I first started that so many of them wrote about the death of a grandparent as being the saddest event. Um,
And that's kind of what this movie is about, is it not?
it is, and so I kept thinking back to that because this is a young girl, uh, but she just, she's so close. Like her grandfather is her world, like the closest.
Mm-hmm.
Even though she has parents and they're involved, it's the grandparent that she really just relates to and spends all this time with. And when I was teaching, it was the same way. Only you might see, like, I mean, these are high school kids, so to see, like, the guys crying over the death of a grandparent, it just, I think, shows you the impact um, that people can have, and grandparents in this movie, and the soldiers, all of that. I just think, like, the bigger message is that we all leave some kind of impact that we don't even know, like people that don't know us, 50, 100 years from now, if they see something we've written, um, they're going to have some like connection to us. They're going to feel like, for at least for a moment, that that they knew us in some way. So I think in our own writing, how does that like make you feel to look at it from that perspective, like our book or our plays?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I haven't really thought about it, to be honest with you. I mean, I just write for the fun of it, and I don't really think about like how it would be perceived 50 years from now.
Yeah. But isn't it kind of cool to think that, at least for a brief moment, when someone reads it, that they will feel like they knew something of you?
Yeah, it's kind of neat. I mean,
Yeah. And I think from a writing perspective, too, this is her first movie that she has actually directed and written, and this is based on a book. So the idea wasn't completely hers.
so she adapted the book to the
She
movie.
she did, and so to be in charge of like the whole project is really exciting, I think, but also a whole lot of responsibility.
Sure, I can imagine a lot of headaches.
So to start out with that being your first project like that is, she's got some, like,
Yeah,
it's,
I think she had done some other stuff before this, but this is her first full length movie.
yeah, and I think it's just it really is a very beautiful piece of artistic. Um, I like it because it's sad, the subject matter, but also, like, she she implements some humor throughout.
Mm-hmm.
So there's funny moments that break up the the sadness that you might be feeling over the loss. But I think you can really relate to Anu, and that's the name of the movie. So I can't wait to just ask her about some of the things that inspired the choices that I saw when I watched the movie.
All right, well, let's talk to what is her name? Sudeshna.
Yeah, then
I'm sorry.
yes, Sudeshna Sen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so we'll talk to Sudeshna and see what the movie is about and what inspired her to adapt the book.
Yeah, and like we should really ask her that question about 50 years from now, 100 years from now. Like, I think we should put that on the question list to like ask our guests from time to time.
Sure, sounds good.
All right.
All right, here we go.
Sudeshna, I want to welcome you today to Backstory Sessions. We're really excited to have you as our guest and talk about your latest film.
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be here. And I wrote and directed and produced Anu, which is about to premiere at the Seattle International Film Festival on Sunday, May 14th. And I'm tremendously excited because this is a story that I've been working on for 5 years, and it's finally coming to fruition, and it's just amazing. And it's a story of a 12-year-old South Asian American girl who's growing up in Seattle, and her closest friend, confidant, is her grandfather, and she witnesses his death, and it's very traumatic. And then, circumstances convince her, like she sees visions of him, and she's convinced that he's still around, that she can bring him back to life, and so that's what she sets about to do, and that's the whole story. Like everything I just said is the first minute and a half or so, and then the rest of the film is her trying to bring him back and getting up to all kinds of mischief and going through all sorts of experiences and shenanigans, and that's the plot. But of course, the film is about taking a deeper look at the pain that children go through, their trauma, and not to trivialize it, not to look down on that audience, but to actually look at it as, because I think children are very complex beings, and I think that we should take their process, the way they process grief, the things that they talk about, and more importantly, the things that they don't talk about, to pay attention to those things and explore that. So that's Anu's journey in this whole film.
I found it interesting. So first, it's an adaptation of a novel. Is that correct?
Yep. Yes.
And so what was it about the novel that made you think this would play out well in film?
I love the book. So it's based on the book. The book is called Looking for Bapu, written by Anjali Banerjee, who is also a local Indian American author. She lives up in somewhere in the Olympic Peninsula, and I read the book, and I read it in one sitting. I couldn't put it down, and I thought it was just so wonderful because it touched upon an experience that is so universal. Losing a loved one, missing a loved one, is a universal experience, and it's universally painful, and everyone can relate to it. But specifically from the immigrant experience, because I'm an immigrant, and specifically from that perspective, I found that we don't often look at that part of the Indian American experience, the South Asian American experience, and we don't often talk about it. So that's primarily what drew me to the story. But honestly, it just felt so real. It just felt so heartfelt that this kid, I could hear the voices when I was reading the book, and that's what I found fascinating. But of course, there are several big differences between the book and the screenplay. So Anjali wrote the book, and I wrote the screenplay, and we both, we read each other. Like she read the script, and we talked about it. But the general ideas, the big change, of course, is that in the book Anu is a little boy, and in the film Anu is a little girl. And I made this decision very intentionally because, as a female director, I think it's super important that we see more and more films that are centered around female characters and have that the girl, her perspective, her take on things. We are in her universe. To see more films like that, I love that personally. So that's what I wanted to tell. And then what else? I mean, there are a couple of minor. After that, there are a couple of very small things that are there in the book, but not in the movie, just because I only get 90 minutes to tell the story, so I wanted to focus on the highlights and couldn't include everything. But yeah, this whole thing was such a wonderful experience because I usually, for my previous films, I have written the story myself. So this was the first time that I adapted somebody else's work. And it was just wonderful to collaborate because, on the one hand, the universe is already made for me, the narrative universe. But on the other hand, it's also, it's you can shape it in different ways and lean into different things. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Well, so I read that you describe yourself as a filmmaker of the quiet moments.
Yep.
So what do you see, as quiet moments?
Oh yeah, yes, that is definitely something I find fascinating, the things that nobody else is noticing. And so in this story, in this particular film, I would say Anu's moments in the forest. So when we start the film, the forest is this magical kingdom that's hers and her Bapu's. And, the birds are there, the light is there, the happiness, everything. It's beautiful. And then the forest transforms into or transitions into something a little less magical. It's where she goes to grieve. It's where she goes to try and find Bapu again. And she's very angry that he's not responding, that he's there, he's responding to her call, but things are not clicking the way they used to. And then of course she tries it again with Auntie Asha, and there also the magic doesn't quite happen the way she would have liked it to. So that is the moment where I find those are the places where you see the things that they don't talk about. They're all talking about birds, of course. They're talking about trying to find this particular owl that they're looking for, barred owls. But it's the things that she's not saying. Like, why is this not as wonderful as it used to be with Bapu? Because it's the exact same spot. And so that would be the place I would say is the quiet moment. The other quiet place, and again, when I say quiet moments, to me, like, you could be surrounded by people. It could be a very crowded room. But then there are these things that are happening in the corners, right? So like the dining table in Anu's house is where there's so many scenes where they have so many meals together and everybody's chattering and all that. But to me, the most important moment is the moment when it's just Anu and her mom, and her mother is asking her, like, why are you doing all these crazy things that you're doing? And don't you understand? Like that honest conversation that they have where neither of them neither of them understand what the other person is talking about. There's this deep disconnect and a ton of conflict, but half of the things that are creating all that is not said. Like, they don't quite come out and say the things that they really want to say. So those are the places where I feel like those are my favorite moments, where you can see the actors, and I must say, I'm going to give a shout out to Dia Modi, who plays Anu, and Tanvi, who plays mom. And Dia especially, she just conveys so much with just a glance. Just one look at a person and her eyes just tell you everything, or almost everything. And so I love these moments.
Well, I thought it was really interesting too when you talk about interludes of meaning and emotion that are unforgettable to those immersed in them, knowable to others. So I think the film does a really good job with signifying that, because and that's really, I guess, true in that, when you're going through the moment and those emotions, it's like you were saying about, you could be, in a quiet moment with all kinds of people around you, because, if they're not experiencing it, then they really don't know. So it's unknowable to others in that way.
Yeah.
I thought that was, really impactful, and I found myself relating so much to her character, more so with my dad dying than my grandfather. But, I definitely could sense like that, wanting to connect again, and worried that you're going to forget what they look like, and just all of those things that the character brought out. So I really did think the actress did a great job with that, and the script was well written to make you connect.
I agree. I mean, I adored how she's a fantastic actress, and I can't wait to see more films from her, honestly, because she's just so naturally gifted at that. Because it's a difficult thing to do, to convey something without saying a word,
Yeah.
just physical, like just expression. And one of the things that when I was writing the scene, I remember thinking this is going to be either wonderful or horrible. Is right after the wake, when they have the memorial for Bapu, and then Dia or Anu is talking to her friend Angar in her room, and that's exactly what she's talking about, that I'm afraid I'm going to forget. And she asks her friend, because these are the things that she should be talking to her parents about, but it's too early in the stage, right? And so she doesn't know how to tell them that this is what I'm afraid of, that I'm going to forget what my Bapu looked like and sounded like. And then her friend says, oh yeah, I used to see my grandma only once, and I don't really remember her. And I feel like that, in a nutshell, that is the film, that is what is scaring the pants off her, and she is going to do everything she can to prevent that from happening. So yeah, these are things that, on the one hand, I wanted to be very specifically South Asian, because I wanted to make sure that the cultural details are correct, and that people, everything, like the song that's playing in the background and the last name of the family, all these things match. But on the other hand, I also wanted to write the story and tell the story, because it is so common. You don't have to be South Asian, right, to experience these things. And the fact that that it spoke to you makes me so happy, because that to me is like, I guess I did a good job then, because it's just so important for us, both as human beings, but also as a collective, as a society, to have this language, to have this framework, some kind of a structure or a scaffolding to use when we're going through all these painful phases in our lives, because they're inevitable, right? We can't escape them. We all lose loved ones. We always go through these phases. And when I was writing the script, my father passed away right in the middle of that, and so it was just like life imitating art, and it's difficult, no matter who you are and what age you're at. It's always difficult. So it's important to have some kind of a frame of reference. And so I wanted to, have this film out there, that it's important to remind ourselves, I think, to reassure ourselves, like Anu does through the film, that it's going to be okay, that there is hope, that there are people around who love us, and that even though it feels like you're going to forget the loved one that you miss so terribly, you won't actually. That there is this magic inside that she discovers, that the magic that she's looking for outside, that she's constantly like going to such desperate measures to find the magician and get all these powers, that she herself has that power, and as do we all. And I think that it's important to remind ourselves of that.
Was it somewhat cathartic, I guess, to since you were writing about this topic, then your father's passing, did it help you to deal with that by writing?
A little. So I mean, I had a little. It did help, but it was also difficult, because I tried to take all that emotion and just sort of process it through writing, but then there were moments when I was absolutely useless. I couldn't do anything. I would just sit and cry. And the thing that I learned is that when that happens, is to just let it go, like not try to stop it or control it. But those are the moments when I feel like, well, if I have to tell myself as an adult to like just let it happen, then it's very important that we show it, show people that it's okay to just feel sad. It's okay to just cry your heart out and let the world know that you're feeling sad. So catharsis, yes, definitely. The whole, and to me, writing in every way, when I write, it's like I'm taking emotions and experiences that, like that was deeply personal, and just sharing it. And people don't know that it happened to me, that I'm writing from my own experience, but that's what most writers do, right? They draw from things that happen to them. And so it is always cathartic, always. But for this particular one in specifically, yeah, it helped that I had a script I was working on, that I could take all this pain and, pass some of it over. But obviously not all of it, right? So.
Sure. So, where was this filmed?
Oh, all in Seattle. I mean, specifically, it's like the city Seattle itself. So we filmed, let's see, the forest scenes were at Lincoln Park in West Seattle, and then we had a lot of our locations were in Queen Anne and Fremont and Ballard, and then we filmed up in Shoreline. The magician's, the magical his theater was in Shoreline, and then we filmed on the ferry, which was wonderful and exciting and so cold. It was so cold. And then let's see, where else did we go? It was all in and around Seattle.
So was that part of the obstacles? What were some of the obstacles of making the film?
Obstacles. Not really. The locations were obviously, there's always tricky because we had a lot of outdoor locations, and that can be like, this was like, for instance, Lincoln Park. This was in the middle of summer, so we filmed in July, mid July through early August of 2021, and summer camps were in peak season, so there were like 100 odd kids who were like in Lincoln Park and having the time of their lives, as they should, because it's the middle of summer. But we were filming and we want complete silence, and so that was a challenge. And then and also, I don't like shutting things down when we're filming, because we had all the permits obviously to film, but we wanted to keep things open and let people walk around because it's the city. And then we were again in the forest, and this gentleman was walking his dog as we were filming a very serious and emotional scene, and the dog saw us and just came running over, and so we had to cut the scene. But we had started filming, and so my editor was like, "You said we just put the dog in. He looks so happy." We have to change the storyline a little bit to add a dog in the middle of the film, but so those were fun, and I laugh about it. But yeah, in the middle of the day, it can disrupt the schedule. Obstacles wise, we didn't really have any obstacles in terms of locations or any of that sort. I would say the hardest thing to do was, so we filmed in the middle of the pandemic, and this was a moment when the state of Washington was actually doing somewhat better than the rest of the country. And so there was a brief window when, as long as we followed all the very strict COVID protocols, that we were allowed to film. And so, I wanted to make sure that we took advantage of that very, very short window and made the film. So we were very fortunate in that regard, that we managed to get everything filmed. It was a very tight schedule. We had 18 days to make this happen. So our whole entire shoot was 18 days, and
Wow.
And yeah, it was super tight. And I'm, looking back, I feel like, God, it's so scary to have such a tight schedule and to have kids and forests and animals and all kinds of things. But at the same time, it was my crew was just fantastic. And I know that people say that, but honestly, this was the best crew any director or producer can ever ask for, because it was fun, but people were very good. They knew what they were doing, and they did everything on time. So we managed to get all our scenes in, like they say, make all your days. So we did all that, and in 18 days. And I'm lucky because this was just, I think the Delta variant hit in September or something like that. Like that fall, things just became hairy. So that, I would say, is probably the biggest and the only challenge that every film set. It wasn't just Washington, wherever films were happening, even everywhere else, it was the thing that we were struggling with, because it doubles your budget pretty much. Well, not doubles, but it's a significant expense. COVID
Sure.
protocols, like doing all of those things, they are expensive. And second, it shortens the days. So because we had our lead actors were kids, so our days were already pretty short. I think we couldn't go over like maybe 8 or 10 hours or something like that. And then the COVID protocols, just sanitizing everything, cleaning everything, it just takes I think we had to stop like every hour or so and go through the whole process. So that takes time out. And so, having a tight schedule, having a very short, like honestly, the actual shooting day would probably be closer to like 6 hours a day, which is really fun when it's summer and you want to like say, oh, I'll be done with work at 7 p.m. and you can go and have fun. It's really fun, but it's pretty terrifying as a production, because that means you have to be very, very good at planning things. So yeah, I would say that was probably the only real, like, really scary challenge.
So, what did you find now that the film is completed? What did you love most about it? Like, what
Oh my God.
better than you thought?
I can only choose one. I can't. I'm sorry. I can't
You
choose
can
one.
choose as many as you
I
want.
it, it was fascinating. Like, the whole thing was amazing. So, different things stand out, right? The For pre-production, the day I finished the script, that, like, it had all these people, who involved, who were like, okay, this works, this doesn't work, and all that. So when I had a locked script, and that was a pretty important day for me, because I was like, okay, I have a locked script, I can finally start, looking for financing and that kind of stuff. But I would say the highlight, like the absolute amazing time, was the day we locked the picture. Like, my editor and I, my editor Eric Frith, who's wonderful to work with. Eric and I looked at each other and we're like, wow, we have a film. Like, it's done, like, from start to finish. It's a complete film, because it's still not the end. Obviously, there is lots to do after that. But the story, like building the structure, the framework is done. Everything else that goes on top, you're just painting the walls. So those are moments that stand out. Yeah, I don't know. I can't pick one. I'm sorry. I know it's a terrible answer, but like, filming in Seattle with all the people in Seattle are wonderful. I had a great cast and crew, and we were like moving from place to place. I can remember we were filming in Lincoln Park, and we were filming the ambulance scene, when Bapu dies, and traffic started pulling over because they saw the ambulance, and we had to actually like, send somebody out and tell them, like, hey, you guys keep going, it's just a film. And so, stuff like that was just wonderful. And I'm sure that other people have stories like this all the time, but this is my first feature, right? And so everything was a first for me, and it's just like, I love this. I can't believe I'm having so much fun.
So, you want to make films that people will have dialogue or conversations about. Do you feel like, now that you've finished, that um, when audiences watch this, that they're going to have conversations about grief and about dealing with things after they've watched the movie?
Absolutely. Oh, that's the dream. That's exactly what I would love. I want folks to call, their loved ones and say, just talk about things, talk about the pain, be open to sharing things. That's Anu's journey, right? The realization that she's never going to be disconnected from her Bapu. He's always going to be a part of her. And on the plus side, her relationship with her parents, with her father and her mother, that goes through a big transformation because of this big trauma that happens in their lives. And I find that there's the hope, right? That the relationships that are going to sustain her, and all of those things are all now, mended, and they're doing better, and they understand each other better. That they're not just understanding. I think they love each other for who they are, like mom and Anu especially. That that mom, like, sees her daughter in a different way, and loves her for who she is, but also who she is becoming. And these are the kind of things that I want people to share freely with their own loved ones. Like, I want, if anybody is having a hard time talking about something with people they care about, then hopefully this film will make that happen. And just, yeah, give that encouragement, that go for it. It's going to be okay. Don't be afraid to share the parts that are vulnerable, the parts that are, afraid, like, the things that we feel nervous about telling people.
Yeah, Matt, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it sounds like a really interesting film. And so, what you said it was going to be in a film festival?
Yes, Anu is going to have its world premiere at Seattle International Film Festival. It's going to show May 14th, Sunday, May 14th at 4 p.m. at the Egyptian Theater, and again, Monday, May 15th at 6 p.m. at Shoreline Community College.
And then what are you going to do with it after that? I mean, is it going to be released to the general public, or? You can be
Yes. So yes, it has Anu has distribution, and so it will be globally distributed by Indie Rights, who's our distributor, and they will they will announce the release dates hopefully soon. So Anu will. I don't have exact dates yet when it will be available, but it will be coming to to
on.
people, to everyone, hopefully this summer.
Okay, you're
Great.
looking forward. Are you going to do the whole red carpet thing, or do you have any plans for
Yes.
that sort of thing?
Yes, yeah, we're very excited about that. So we're gonna do that and have lots of photos because cast and crew, we've worked so hard that it's time to kind of glam it up a little.
Sure.
And yeah.
That's cool. All right, Kat, we have time for one more question.
All right. So, what advice would you give to aspiring filmmakers?
Stick with it. Just don't ever give up because there were so many moments, both as the writer, as the director, as the producer, that it felt like, oh, this is just too hard. But the only reason we can go and see the film today is because I just couldn't stand the idea of not finishing this. So I would say, whoever, if you're writing a script or if you're trying to raise money to make a movie, or if you have a movie and you're thinking, where would I want to send this or show it, don't give up. Even if nothing is working, just stick with it. Good things will happen.
That sounds like very good advice. So, I hope that's helpful to someone out there that's struggling with their project. This is a fascinating movie. I encourage everyone to watch it because really, you will find a character that you relate to. Because they all approach the subject of grief in a different way. And, I think one of them will match. So I really, it's beautifully done. And I'm glad that you hung in there and made this come to life. And I thank you for being our guest today and giving us a little more insight into the making of it.
Thank you so much. It was great being here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
As always, if you have any questions, concerns, or comments, you can send those to Kat at iwriteplays@outlook.com, or you can write to me at backstorysessions@gmail.com or matt@level11ventures.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.